The screen is black. Absolute silence. Then, the sound of a racket striking a tennis ball. Clean. Precise. Powerful. The camera slowly fades in on Carlos Alcaraz, sitting in a press conference at Wimbledon. He's smiling. He's leaning forward. Reporters hang on his every word. Tour of tennis. A 5-time Grand Slam champion at just 22 years old. A man who has beaten Djokovic, who has conquered the world, who has redefined what is possible on a tennis court. When Carlos Alcaraz speaks, the tennis world listens. But when he was asked about a young player from the Philippines, a girl with ruffled socks and light-up shoes, he said something that left everyone speechless. This wasn't just a compliment. This wasn't just respect. This was a confession, one that has the entire tennis establishment asking, what does Carlos Alcaraz see in Alexandra Eala that nobody else does? Why is the greatest young player in tennis praising a 21-year-old from the Philippines? Why has their connection become one of the most talked-about stories of the tournament? And here's the twist. What did Eala say about Alcaraz that proves this goes both ways? Buckle up, because this is the story of a tennis legend's unexpected tribute, and why it proves that Alex Eala is already a champion. Alexandra Eala had already made history. She had become the first Filipino to reach the 4th round of a Grand Slam in the Open era. She had beaten defending champion Iga Swiatek on center court. She had inspired a nation. But somewhere in the middle of all that, after the chaos, after the history-making victory, after the tears, she had been asked a question that would take on a new meaning in the days to come. Before Alcaraz had spoken about her, Eala had spoken about him. Speaking ahead of the WTA 500 Stuttgart tournament earlier in the year, Eala had been asked about her dream mixed doubles partners. Her answer left no room for doubt. I would love to play with Djokovic or with Alcaraz, although Joao Fonseca would also be a great option because he attracts many fans, she said. She had named Alcaraz among the best players in the world. She had put him in the same category as Novak Djokovic, one of the greatest players of all time. And now, weeks later, Alcaraz was about to return the favor. The tennis world had been watching Eala's rise. The numbers were impossible to ignore. Her matches were drawing record crowds. Her press conferences were drawing record views. She was the biggest tennis player her country had ever produced. And Carlos Alcaraz, it seemed, had been paying attention. The media room was packed. Alcaraz had just survived a 5-set thriller against Fabio Fognini, a match that thatched him in ways few had expected. Didn't expect to play 5 sets against him, Fognini had said. I had my chance. Alcaraz had struggled at times. He had double faulted 9 times. He had faced a hard-to-believe 21 break points. He had made more unforced errors than winners. But he had survived. And now he was sitting in front of the press, answering questions about his own performance. But then the question came. The one that would change everything. A reporter asked Alcaraz about Alexandra Eala, the Filipina sensation who had just beaten the defending champion, and Alcaraz's response left the room in stunned silence. Alex is incredible, Alcaraz said. She's the biggest tennis player that country has ever had. What she's doing for tennis, not just for the Philippines, but for the sport globally, is bigger than anyone realizes. The reporters leaned in. This was one of the biggest stars in tennis, publicly praising a 21-year-old from Quezon City. What? She has the heart of a champion, Alcaraz continued. The way she fights, the way she never gives up, that's something you can't teach. I've been watching her journey, and I'm just so impressed. Then came the words that would make headlines around the world. She's not just a rising star. She's already a champion. She's already a legend. The room erupted. Journalists scrambled to write down his exact words. Alcaraz wasn't just complimenting Eala. He was elevating her. He was putting her in a category that few players ever reach. The tennis world was buzzing. Alcaraz's words had spread like wildfire. Fans on social media were sharing them, commenting on them, dissecting them. The connection between the two rising stars had become the story of the tournament. The mutual admiration between them wasn't new. Earlier in the year, Eala had been photographed with Alcaraz at the prestigious Laureus World Sports Awards in Madrid, where he was named Sportsman of the Year. She had called him one of her dream partners. The respect was real. The connection was undeniable. Alcaraz, for his part, had been a witness to Eala's rapid rise. He had seen her become the first Filipino to reach a WTA final, the first to be seeded at a Grand Slam, the first to reach the 4th round of Wimbledon. Carlos is an inspiration to me, Eala said. Watching him win Wimbledon, watching him fight through matches, learning from his mentality, it's been huge for me. To hear him say those things about me is honestly overwhelming. The stage was set for the most dramatic moment of Eala's career. She had already beaten defending champion Iga Swiatek on center court. She had already become a national hero. And now, with Alcaraz's words echoing in the background, she was preparing for the next challenge. But what made this moment even more special was the setting. Wimbledon, the tournament Eala had dreamed of since childhood. When I dreamed of the big dreams when she had trained at the Rafa Nadal Academy since she was 13. She had hit with Rafael Nadal himself. It was so special for me, Eala said of that experience. Obviously, training with Rafa is something that people and young kids can only dream about. Now she was on center court at Wimbledon, one of the biggest stages in the sport, and Alcaraz was watching from afar. He had been forced to withdraw from Wimbledon due to a wrist injury sustained in Barcelona in April. But that didn't stop him from following Eala's journey. He was one of her biggest supporters. Alexandra Eala's Wimbledon run had come to an end. She had lost to Jasmine Paolini in the fourth round, a heartbreaking 6-4, 4-6, 6-3 defeat. But that didn't matter. What mattered was the legacy she had already created. Alcaraz's words had been validated. Eala had become the first Filipino to reach the fourth round of a Grand Slam. She had beaten the defending champion on center court. She had inspired a nation. It's an honor to be able to pave the way for young girls, Eala had said earlier in the tournament. It would be the honor of my life to be able to inspire others. And she had done exactly that. The tennis world had seen something special. A player who didn't just compete, who inspired. A player who didn't just win, who changed lives. A player who had earned the respect of the greatest players in the sport. And when asked about the connection with Alcaraz, Eala summed it up perfectly. Carlos said some amazing things about me, and I'm so grateful for that. But I don't want to be defined by what others say. I want to define myself. The revolution had begun, and it was going to be glorious to watch. The revolution had begun, and it was going to be glorious to watch.